one of the co-founders of 100 Voices of Florida, and I'm excited because I'm here speaking with Caleb Scott, our fall 2024 short script winner for this season. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
The winning script was Adios Andy. So if you can just kind of start by just telling us a little bit about the story.
Adios Andy. It's like a compressed road trip movie. And it centers around two adult siblings whose kind of estranged father has just passed, and they've kind of concocted this. Well, one of the siblings has concocted this road trip to scatter their father's ashes at a place where they've discovered their father used to go when he was a kid. So they're trying to kind of bring him back to a place where he was happy. And when they get there, when they arrive to that place, it's a ruin, and it becomes more about them discovering a relationship with each other and kind of reconciling with who their father was.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting, tricky thing to talk about, because this hasn't been made just yet, right? You're kind of working towards.
Yeah, I mean the script has sort of just recently been kind of finalized, and I'm in the stages now of trying to figure out how to cobble together the resources and the people and the cast and figure out how to make it all happen.
Well, one of the things I kind of find interesting, with short films or short scripts in general is just kind of like really deciding where they're going to start, because it's like you don't have a lot of time. You want to make sure that you get in and out. So just out of curiosity, was there ever a moment where you had a draft where it started maybe before?
When I wrote this, I was sort of working on two scripts that were, or thinking about at least two scripts, two stories that had a similar premise. So I guess yes would be the answer to that. But for this particular script, I felt like sort of the movement of the journey felt like where the moment of that short film really kind of starts. And I wanted it to feel like you don't really know where they're going at first. You don't really know what their relationship is at first. And that it's just like two people in a car going somewhere. And then everything kind of reveals itself.
Are you, is that other script something that you're still sort of considering or tackling, or did you kind of see it as this or that?
The other script, I think it still exists in the ether, and it could happen. I think the other script really changed. So really changed a lot. There was a moment when it was about like coming out of COVID and stuff. Like there's been lots of versions of both things. But this story I kind of figured out first.
Was any part of that figuring it out, the fact that it kind of came to you sooner, was that driven by some sort of inspiration or personal connection with the story? Or
there are lots of inroads, for myself, about the characters and kind of who they represent. And I've got tons of siblings and ways that I interact with them, and complicated relationships with my parents, one of whom has passed. So there are lots of connections to me. But I don't know. That's an interesting question. I don't know if I could really answer it. There wasn't like a light bulb that went off.
Right.
I'd been talking at the very beginning. When the earliest drafts of this script were happening, I was working with a director friend of mine who was going to direct it when it happened. So there was input from him too. And he had some insights about his relationship with his father. So there was a lot of stuff kind of like bubbling, and then it kind of just all fell into place eventually. And then actually the draft that you have and that you read, it happened after a recent kind of not a full rewrite, but I worked on it a little bit in the past couple months. So there were a few changes, different ideas that kind of made their way into it.
So one of the things you highlighted was about the characters, and then you also mentioned that you have a few siblings yourself. I wanted to take a moment to highlight Vanessa because she's written beautifully, and with nuance too, in that sort of way that she's the kind of character where we all feel like we know who that is in our own lives. So is that kind of, is there like a, you don't have to call them out, I suppose, but a sibling in particular, or is there sort of, is she like a culmination of just what it means like to have a
Yeah,
sibling or that person?
I think like in a way she's me.
Okay, okay.
But then there are aspects of, there are kind of aspects of both of them that are me, and then there's also like my siblings baked in there too. But that relationship where you have a sibling or a close friend who has their like their ADD like mind is or whatever they have a plan and they're gonna do this thing and they're dragging you along and you're kind of like, oh god, again, like we're gonna go through this stupid thing. Fine, I'll do it, but like you owe me $20, like that whole thing.
Do you see casting yourself? Is that in mind?
I don't know yet. I kind of that I have a good friend of mine who's an actor who I sort of imagined in that role as Danny, and an actress who I imagine could be a great Vanessa, and they know each other, and in a weird way, they kind of have that sparring sort of relationship already, which is kind of great to
Can lead
think
into
about.
it.
So like
Yeah.
it wouldn't be a hard process to get them to like be in that place and tell the story.
Yeah. Well, you also mentioned that, in a previous question about, a director friend of yours. And I don't know if that's still the director in mind, but my question then was going to be, are you directing it? Do you see that sort of, I'm trying to give you all the roles.
Yeah. No, I think if I'm not in it, then I would want to direct it just so I
Okay.
can my hands in the pot the whole time, greedy that way. Although, I'm always interested in seeing what other minds do to things that I've put out into the world. So like I actually like having other people direct the stuff that I write because it's always surprising.
Yeah.
And it's fun too. But I mean, part of that too is like I love as a writer, my favorite part as a writer uh, happens when actors start to say the words. Because there's like, it always just like blows my mind. Like I never, always different than how I imagined. Always. And that's like a particular delight of mine, like seeing that
Yeah.
start to happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's an aspect of, this filmmaking is this collaborative thing, and it's kind of that word that we all know is a component of it. But I still don't feel like the joy of it, like in the way that you're just trying to describe, is highlighted enough. Because I feel that way similarly with, with the other components. Like sometimes I kind of purposefully, not that I try to know less about something, but it's kind of more about, stepping back so that someone else can step up, and it
Yeah.
kind of gives you that opportunity to see it from their perspective, as well as giving them an opportunity to, because ultimately when you're directing, you're still making the final decision.
Right.
So what harm does it come from seeing, how other people may approach it, to solve the problem that you're trying to solve, or, there's just so many different aspects of it that, and to see people shine in their own sort of light.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely see what you're saying about, not just how actors can bring bring their own ideas into it, but it just becomes this, like, now it feels real. And even in
Yeah.
this world of fiction, you know, it was in my head, it was on this paper, and now this is, you know, it's like it's getting good, it's getting real, and
Right.
it really allows you to kind of sink into that reality for a
Yeah.
moment while you're making it.
And
So,
honestly, the story changes too, you know, like the
mm-hmm.
not just sort of the it's not just about like I've been in situations where something I've written after a rehearsal process or after it's been produced or filmed, that the story is a different story. Like it tells a different story than
Mm-hmm.
I intended or that I imagined. And that's always like, that's sort of the magic of it, right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
it's something else that you didn't know. Even though you created it, it becomes something different than that. And that's like wonderful, I think.
Yeah, yeah, that kind of to because the flip side of that is just that sort of, I don't know, while I trust myself in being able to make the right decisions, I feel like I trust myself more in those moments when I know what all the options are versus
Right.
just that it's like immediately coming from my head, my idea, my option, you know, my choice, you know, and that kind of stranglehold of it. And I think there's that aspect where you just kind of let it go and then let it exist, you know, on its own.
Right.
And
I mean,
that's kind of, I think, where the beauty. Hmm?
you do have to kind of give your baby away, right? Like
Yeah.
let someone else adopt it and raise it. And like that's like,
Yeah.
but there's also like that seems really scary and weird and hard, but
Mhm.
like it's actually kind of great.
Yeah, I mean, we say it takes a village, but then we have to let the village take it. So,
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
um, and so going back to directing for a moment, because I'm not recalling, have you directed a short before, or would this be the first one?
I've like co-directed
Okay.
um like there's a couple of short film projects that I and you know even though I'm not credited as director on a couple of them, I that was my function, you know, because I'm in it and then I wrote it and then like the director directed, but like we really co-directed even though that's not what the credit is.
Yeah.
Because I mean like short films even more than I think features, you're working on you're scrappy and everyone
Mhm.
has like 10 different roles and you have to rely on everyone to kind of figure everything out, you know. um
Mhm.
so I guess yes and no. Like I didn't technically direct those things, but
Yeah.
I did function that way.
Right. Yeah. It's to minimize the credits on a short film from being 5 minutes, because everyone is both the grip and the gaffer
Right,
and the special
exactly. Like
effects and the
I feel
director
like I
and the
was the
editor.
boom operator too. A couple of times.
Just doing it all. Um, okay, so I'm gonna go back. I'm like so curious about more with ADIOS Andy, but it's almost like we're gonna definitely have to chat again when the film is made, and can't wait to see it. It's a little bit more revealed, so I don't want to give too much away. So stepping outside of the story for in this moment, obviously this is kind of also tied with 100 Voices of Florida and just sort of like making that Floridian connection. So I know you're not originally from Florida, so if you can tell us a little bit about just kind of what landed you here.
Well, that's sort of a long story.
Or the short version, I suppose, or
I've kind of
if
lived
it's
in all the sort of like actor filmmakery places.
mhm.
And it was really my wife's job that landed us here. And uh, when we came to Miami, we'd never like it wasn't really in the plan at all. Like God was
Mhm.
laughing at us. Um, and so like I didn't even know if there was going to be a career to be had down here. I didn't know anything about the landscape, like as an actor or writer or anything. So I sort of was like, well, I can like grow a beard and start to write novels, I guess, try that
Yeah.
out. But I like quickly figured it out and started to find work and started to build a community and you know started to make things. So but I still at times feel like an outsider, even though I've been here for 8 years. Like I
Hmm.
I feel like I'm in a place that's someone else's like zone, and I'm still like sort of there trying to parse it all out. And
Yeah.
there's something in the script about that. Like I wanted the siblings either to not currently live in Florida, or like their father maybe retired to Florida, or was from Florida originally, and then like what I mean, like they're coming from the outside and like going into the Everglades, so it's like they don't know what they're gonna find, and they don't even know how they fit at all, but they know that their father had this like really strong connection to this place.
Hmm.
um uh and I like that too. I like this idea that like places have a like a huge role in someone's in play a large part in someone's identity, right? Which is
Hmm.
very clear about people who are from Florida. Like they are like Florida born and bred. That's a whole thing. And I know that's true of a lot of places, but like I definitely
Hmm.
see it a lot here. And so I kind of am playing with that idea too, that like they're they're kind of me coming to a place I don't understand, but but going there in a way to try to understand their father better, I guess.
Hmm.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad actually, on a side note, to hear you mention that Floridians, that we have the pride a little bit, because I do sometimes think that we are also our biggest bullies. And I'm like, no, we have to, we're kind of like the butt of the joke sometimes with like news headlines or things that happen, with our Florida man or Florida woman. But I'm glad to hear from an outsider's perspective, I guess, even though you've been here for quite some time now, that we represent. So
No, it's very true. And I mean, like, you can even be, it's like Florida, and then you can even like, then it's like the people who are like Miami natives,
mm-hmm.
like it's like a thing. Like, that's real.
Yeah, yeah, they definitely wear it across their chest. Um, but I guess it's kind of like family, where you can, with, you love your family, but you also can, you're the only one who's allowed to make fun of it. So maybe that's kind of what
Right.
the dynamic is.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Um,
I mean, I think there's a certain ownership to all that, like Florida bashing. Like, I feel like people who love Florida, who are from here, they're like, yeah, it's crazy. So am I.
yeah,
Do about it. It's what makes it awesome. Like it's a whole thing.
yeah, it's a good time. We're prior to, I got like two questions. I'm trying to remember them at the same time. So prior to coming to Florida, were you writing as well, or was that a journey that kind of started when you landed here?
No, I've kind of I've always, well, always, but I was a
Hmm.
writer first, even before I
Oh,
became,
okay,
like, I went to
gotcha.
school to be a writer. And so and I wrote plays first,
Mm,
and then screenplays, and then back to plays, and then other stuff. And I have a podcast with a Miami native, which is uh, which is back to the Florida man thing. Like
mm-hmm.
we it's a storytelling podcast where we write stories from the first person based on Florida man headlines, and then perform them as the Florida man or Florida woman. this thing. So yeah, there's lots of ways that I've been a writer, but I've been doing it for since I could really
Hmm.
write.
I love how much you've embraced Florida. I think more than more than a
Well, it's
lot of,
just
you know,
like, I'm
you're
here.
yeah,
I might as well
you're
really be here.
that's true. That's true. Just take it all in, and it's like seeing the content, but in a good way, in a good way. And using it to just all these sort of creative ways. I mean, that's a very clever, unique, you know, especially with something like a podcast. It's still, I think, on this, I think podcasts are still on this sort of upward trek, as people are becoming more and more open to listening to them, you know, but at the same time, there is kind of a lot of them. So
True.
finding that way to just sort of stand out and you know, kind of finding your niche and things like that. So what was the name of the podcast again?
It's called Worst Place on Earth.
Yeah. So that's something definitely to listen out for.
Yeah.
And then, because you have a new season coming out, or
We
is
do.
it currently
Yeah, we
airing?
do. We're pulling it together now. It'll very soon. Very soon we'll
Okay.
make the announcement.
Okay. But the first season is available to listen to.
First season, yeah. I think it's 20 episodes, I think, in the first season.
Sounds good. And then I know you've mentioned sort of different, I mean, just moving here in general, as you kind of indicated, you didn't really know anything about it. That alone kind of makes it a big shift. And I'm kind of curious, you've mentioned having lived in, you know, the common actory sort of locations. How would you compare Miami to those other sort of places, or whether that's specifically with acting or just creativity, or the energies different, or the opportunities different? How would you, you know,
Yeah, I mean,
like,
like
is there like a,
it's
yeah.
hard to compare
Mm,
my anything. But like if I was gonna try to compare it to like LA or to New York, I mean, they're all like so different. I mean, like
yeah.
Miami's kind of spread out like LA, and sort of the truism about LA, where like LA is different depending, like LA exists only insofar as like the neighborhood you live in. You know what I mean? Like if you live in
Hmm.
this neighborhood, your existence in LA is going to be very different than if you live in that neighborhood. But Miami's the same way, right? It feels
Hmm.
like that. Um,
Yeah.
but there are aspects of Miami that have kind of like the energy of New York. So,
Mm,
and I feel like there's more interchange between Miami and New York than between Miami and LA. So I feel like they share a lot of kind of, well, they share a lot of like retirees, but like there's, um, but it's as far as like the industry goes and like sort of what's happening here artistically, I feel like it's less contained. Like it's the Wild West down here. I mean,
hmm.
there's stuff happening, but like it's happening despite kind of the climate for it. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
we have less resources here than in New York or LA as artists. So we have to figure out more creative ways to make our things happen. There isn't as much of an infrastructure. There isn't much of a central sort of uh, industry. So we kind of have to like figure it all out ourselves. Um, and does that make better work? I don't know. Like I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah.
Maybe it's like those obstacles create like more interesting work because it's harder.
Hmm.
In some ways, it's harder in some ways.
Right. Because then you almost really have to want it, you know, and then you kind of will do whatever you need to sort of make that come to life.
But
Now, since
even
you
break the law.
yeah, exactly that.
But
And like if you were able to sort of go back and now that you have been here for some time, you know, any tips that you would give yourself if you could, you know, when you were first moving to Florida, or in general to any tips that you would share with artists that are just going to a new place and they may feel like they're starting over or starting from scratch?
Yeah. Wow. I think you have to like really reach out, put yourself out there, like go to events, go to plays, go to the film festivals, like go meet people, talk to people, figure out how they're doing it.
Mhm.
That's literally what I did. I mean, I came here and I just was like, I have to figure this place out, or I'm not gonna like make it. So like,
Yeah.
I just went, I threw myself into all the things, like all the things, and I was able to like meet great people and kind of get relationships going, and I was able to like audition for stuff and start to get work and like really start to like build a weird career. um, and like I said, it's not as it really isn't as like you know in LA I had like my agent and manager and like they told me what to do and where to go. And
Right.
it's like I have those things, but then there's also all this other stuff that I'm doing myself and like talking to people directly and you know you have to like really be willing to do that to like not depend on like the normal channels. You have to kind of
Mhm.
like go in all the back doors.
So do you have, I know one of the questions that we asked our spring winner, I'm trying to remember exactly. I think it was, if giving a recommendation, whether someone's coming into town. Um, I remember it was do something that someone should do and something that someone should eat. I think there was a third one. I am not remembering it right now. So do you have any sort of recommendations for that just within, and whether it's within Miami or just in Florida in general, that kind of stand out for you, if there's something that someone should do if they're coming into the state, or something that someone should eat? You have like a favorite restaurant or anything? Just gonna give some places a shout out.
Wow. I'm trying to also remember. I'm trying to remember like what because like I like there were some great restaurant experiences, but they're like singular. You know, like I have places I go that I like to like that are walkable to my house stuff. I think, and I know this is not this is probably not a popular idea, but like when I came down here and I was looking for places to live,
Mhm.
I had the idea in my head where I was like, well, it's Miami, you have to live like near the beach. So I wanted that was like the thing. And I figured that out. Like we do live near the beach, but like um I wanted to be in a place where I could get around without a car. And I know
Okay.
that like nobody does that, you know, or like whatever. And again, it depends on where you go.
Yeah.
But, like I loved the fact that when I first arrived here, I didn't need a car. And I just like biked and walked everywhere.
Mhm.
And I learned the city that way. And I would like discover like weird things like a Cuban bakery and like a tiki bar and like I found all
Mhm.
these places by accident, not from like a guidebook. And that is
Mhm.
that's its own pleasure. Like
Mhm.
you're the explorer as opposed to like the Lonely Planet guide to.
Yeah. No, I think that that's a
So
lovely suggestion, because it's definitely, you know, feeling like a local. Sometimes when I travel, I definitely don't feel like I'm doing enough. And that's because I'm spending a lot of my time, even if it's a short amount of time, almost as if I actually live there. So like I'm losing a lot of hours in my day because I might be going on a long walk, and I probably could have hit, three bakeries if I would have, jumped in a lift or something like that. And I'm just like, no, I'm just gonna walk in this neighborhood like anybody else would and take my time to get there. And then sometimes at the end of the day, I'm like, man, I really didn't do too much. I'm just, um,
But I do
you
think
know,
that's when you find the thing that you were never going to find unless you did,
right.
and it's not the thing in the guidebook. It's like some weird like restaurant tucked down an alleyway that like that
Hmm.
was amazing. Um, I mean like that's I feel like that's how you learn a place
Hmm.
is
Yeah.
like in a in a in a slow stroll.
No, exactly. And I think that there was always, and South Florida has that sort of thing about it that I don't know if it's like atmospheric or something, that it kind of makes you like, there are pockets of those areas, as you're saying, that are definitely, walkable. And then, but it kind of gives you that, facade sometimes, like, well, I could just go outside and just, go to the, corner store, and then sometimes you're kind of like, wait, no, I gotta get in my car, I gotta go,
I am not
yeah.
advocating
Yeah.
walking along 95. You know, I mean, if you can't, like, or riding your bike anywhere near
Yeah.
like any of the expressways, like that's just suicide. I like hardly even want to drive on them. So that's
Yeah.
please don't do that. Don't
Yeah.
take what I
In the right
said.
areas. In the right areas. If you're able to.
Drive to the neighborhood. Take an Uber to the neighborhood
There you
that you
go.
want to for, and then walk around. How about
Yeah,
that?
exactly. Um, I'm trying to think of, I love that suggestion though, by the way. It's a very lovely suggestion, and it's one of those questions that you definitely don't want it to be any sort of right answer, it's a personalized one. Um, and yeah, so that was great. And I want to try to see, thinking here. Um, feel like I had another question. I might have lost it now. Sorry.
I don't have any
Um,
answers anyway.
yeah. um, I know. Let's see if I cut this moment out. But
You could just do that like quick little cut where it just seems like
yeah,
you swore, but you didn't want to put that in there because it's for kids, for families. I don't know.
yeah, yeah. It's like bleep. So, well, just I think also kind of being considerate of the time and all these other things. Just kind of is there a way for us to sort of, or those listening, watching, to kind of keep up with you? Anything, either, kind of like a little bit about what's next, and what's current, and how can we, catch up with you, sort of, with your work.
Yeah, good question. I feel like everybody says this, but I'm like kind of bad at the social media thing. I
Listen,
am.
I don't even have one, so
I do exist
the
out
fact that we're
there. I
doing
just,
this.
um, uh, and I suppose that would be a good way to like let people know about what I'm doing. But of course, the podcast, if people want to keep up with that, we are
Yes,
about to
yes.
launch our season 2, and it's available like everywhere podcasts exist. You know, and I think like now it's sort of like people only listen to podcasts like on Spotify or like one other place, maybe Google, Apple Podcasts,
Yeah,
whatever. I don't know.
yeah.
So that's one thing. I'm in a. I just started rehearsing for a play with Miami New Drama at the Colony
Right,
Theater.
congratulations.
Thank you. It's called Bad Dog.
Hmm.
We open January 25th, I think, or 23rd. So
Are tickets
that's
currently available for purchase?
yes, I believe they are, and that's at
Okay.
miaminewdrama.org.
We'll find it. We'll
So I'm
find it.
really great at this. I'm really great at
Yeah.
selling tickets. It's going to be a great play.
Mhm.
And I have a feature film that I did not write, but that I'm in, that is making the festival rounds now, and it's
Okay.
going in the St. Augustine Film Festival right this month, and then it'll be all over the place, going up to New York and then to London, and I'm going to follow it around to as many of those places as I can. That's called The Strange Dark.
Okay.
And then I've got like 3 things in sort of pre-development, feature film that I'm trying to raise money for, called John the Seagull. That's about a seagull. That's a
Yep.
full-length road trip movie. Um, and this short and another short and uh,
And it never stops,
it never
essentially,
stops.
right?
I mean,
Yeah,
I could
exactly.
literally just list all the pots
Yeah.
on the back burners into infinity.
Oh man. No, I know what you mean. It's just kind of, that question of what's next. It's like, don't ask me that.
Yeah, like
It's a
everything
mixture
and
of,
nothing.
yeah, a mixture of, I know exactly what is next, and I also have no idea, because that
Right,
happens too. It's
right.
like, I'm pretty sure in an interview I was like, this thing's next, and then a week later I was shooting something else. So it's like unreliable in knowing what's next, but reliable in that something will be next.
Yes,
So
I could do the work. I don't know if I.
but I thought I remembered the question that I wanted to ask, kind of in regards, going back briefly to Adios Andy, and maybe this is a question too soon, but just given that it is a road trip, that's a key component. Have you considered how you thought about how you would like that to be? Like, would you like that sort of done practically, sort of like on location? I know the sort of volumes and those LED screens have become extremely popular, especially for driving. So just kind of, if you have,
Oh, yeah.
if the mind has gone there, or am I going a little bit, am I jumping too far ahead? I'm already
That's a
trying to
great
get this thing
question.
made.
I think my gut says that it's a real car and we're really doing it. Like,
Mhm,
I think you can kind of tell,
mhm.
at least especially with the budget that I'll be working with, you can kind of
Yeah.
tell like
Mhm,
when those things aren't real. I mean, uh, I think if it was one of those things where like where the question is like, are they really in the car? Is this a dream, or is this
mhm.
virtual reality, or is it really happening? Then yeah, we mess around with that. But I think for this, it's again like the power of the place like the is really important. Like the place itself is very important, plays a very
Mhm.
important role in the story. So I think that place needs to like feel very real, and you need to really feel like you're there with them. So I think yeah. And then there's the car, like that
Right.
old car, like it was their dad's car, smelly old like station wagon kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah,
um,
it's almost like a third character.
yeah, yeah, and it's kind of the dad, the part of the dad too, and I don't know. Yeah,
Have you by any chance watched the one of the more recent films on Netflix, Three Daughters?
I haven't seen that. No.
Okay. It just kind of popped into my head. And it's these three sisters kind of, dealing with the soon to be passing father, and it's kind of like in his last moments, and it all takes place in this apartment, and then a little bit outside of it, like directly outside of it. And um yeah, it kind of, there's a little bit of a tone similarity that kind of, I don't know, you may enjoy it, but it just
Yeah,
popped
no.
into my head.
I actually have a script that started as a play that I have a short film version of called Sana Sana Colita de Rana, about 4 sisters,
uh, this is great.
4 sisters who are dealing with the recent loss of their mother.
Hmm.
And it's like it all takes place in like the bathroom of their dead mother's house. And
Yeah.
like it's like
Sorry,
crazy.
sorry if this script is so not funny. I just wasn't at
It
the
is
lovely
fun. It
time of,
is
oh, okay,
totally
okay.
funny. It's a hundred
Okay.
percent
Just
funny.
wanted to make sure.
It's 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 a comedy.
Yeah.
It's a comedy with a dead mother in it.
I've been waiting
Um,
for a film to be titled that, and I love that you're doing it. So
Well, and the funny, not the maybe the funniest part of the script is that none of that, like they're not Latin. None of them can speak Spanish. So it's this thing. It all goes back to this thing their mother used to say to them, and none of them know what it actually means. So that's like a big part
Yeah.
of the story
Oh my
too.
God,
They all
Caleb,
have
is this
different
my
ideas.
life? Are you writing about me?
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to
I'm the sh- Please, yes, I'm the shameful Hispanic, American
you.
American Hispanic that, yeah, definitely we weren't taught Spanish and the parents regret that now, but it's like, oh well. Yes. And I had that moment. I grew up with hearing that and I had that moment where I'm like, what are you saying?
Yeah,
So
it was a very
okay.
weird that expression. I mean, the expression is weird anyway. Like the
Yeah.
literal translation of it is weird. Um, and then how it sounds to a English speaker's weird too. Like what? And then when someone tells you what it means, you're like, what? And
Yeah.
that's supposed to mean like feel better. Like
Yeah.
why? No one can tell you why.
Yeah. It just is. It is what it is.
Right.
And that's
And that's
basically
it.
the rules of growing up in a Hispanic household.
Feel like that's
Just
also the rules of the Spanish language.
right. Right. Yeah. So well, that'll be exciting. That sounds great. And again, it's kind of like, your willingness to just, to whether they're coming from experience or things you're learning about and just having, you know, like a curiosity or just a bravery or just a whatever, just having a fun time. Maybe you're not thinking too much about it and you're just sort of doing it because it's coming to you. And either way, I think it's great. And I'm excited to see what else is going to be kind of coming out of coming through into your art from all of your experiences and what we're going to be able to see and follow you with. So I mean, this has been a great I think I want to end it there because that couldn't be a better ending. It's been great chatting with you and getting to know you, and yes, and I'm excited that you're a winner.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm very excited. It's again, like I've said it. I think I've said it like 5 or 6 times already. But like you know, support like that it happens so rarely, and like with the funding cuts and all the stuff, like there aren't a lot of resources for us, and
Hmm.
it's just like really great to have support come. It
Hmm. Well, we are excited to do it. We're excited to keep doing it, and I hope that for those that are in South Florida, whether in Miami or everybody in Broward, West Palm, you have that opportunity to go see, what was it? Was it Bad Dog?
That dog is the play. Yeah.
Bad Dog, yes, at the Miami New Drama.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so everybody should definitely be going out to see that. It's going to be opening at the end of January, and best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.